What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbein, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, we seem to be back when it comes to the wide receivers and everything going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers and their search for a position that, maybe they shouldn't be searching for, should be searching for, however you want to put it. Meanwhile, it's the happy hour, which means we're diving into all your questions. Toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. It's a beautiful one here in the Berg. Jacob, how you feel, my friend?
Feeling good. Don't know if you caught a swig I was taking seconds ago, but we got the Poppy on lock today. Don't know what you're sipping on this wonderful happy hour here, but is it better than soda? Nope, not even close, but I'm drinking it today.
The Poppies to me are, I don't know, man. I don't even know what to think of them because you look at them every day and I go, they're healthy, I think, but they don't taste as good. And the Diet Pepsis might kill me real fast, but that's okay. That's okay for me to let the DPs take me out in good graces. I'm fired up for this happy hour Thursday. I keep thinking it's Tuesday. I actually keep thinking it's Friday, but we're here. The Pittsburgh Steelers today in the locker room was as boring as it gets. And I want to start with this one before we start talking wide receivers and their interest in Tyreek Hill and potential interest in Romeo Doubs and everybody else that's circulating around the internet right now. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, did you expect a game that ended the way it did to lead into a week that was so uneventful as the week that the Pittsburgh Steelers are having right now, when there's not anything to talk about because, well, there are no overreactions to be had when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers? I went into this week thinking somebody on the radio has got to say something. Colin Cowherd's got to have some crazy take on this defense and how it's over. The craziest thing I heard was Kurt Warner try to say that, well, Aaron Rodgers didn't have a good game against the Jets, which is outlandish, but, everybody's got their opinion in one way or another. You look at it, you look at what's going on. Did you expect things to be this boring?
Did I expect this? No. But I mean, I think it's a good thing. And I'm trying to embrace the boring while it's happening, or at least the 48 to 72 hours of it that we're having, because I know come Sunday, come week 2, home opener against the Seattle Seahawks, Acrisure Stadium, the environment itself is going to provide plenty to talk about. And, if memory serves correct, I believe our Monday morning sort of debrief from Sunday was filled with some lukewarm, to hot takes about the first game. We didn't want to go too far into the overreactions. I get it, but
for sure,
I'm saying all this to mean that the boring is okay for right now. While it wasn't really expected, I think it's a good thing for the Steelers team that has been maybe the most dramatic of Mike Tomlin's Steeler teams, just in terms of storylines and attention and buzz and things like that. It's okay to be a little bit boring on a Thursday afternoon heading into week 2. It's not all bad, Do you feel differently?
No, I think it's agreed. I think I'm just surprised. I went into the week thinking there's going to be something. There's absolutely nothing. Maybe it's the Seattle Seahawks, which are a dreadfully boring team. I have no idea. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they stay on the rumor mill, and that keeps things interesting. And that's where we'll turn to next. There are 2 names revolving around the Pittsburgh Steelers right now in terms of the wide receivers, and that is Tyreek Hill and that is Romeo Doubs. One of them played with Aaron Rodgers. The other one seems to continue to be a name for the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether you want it to be or not. And, well, we're going to have a conversation about whether or not it means anything, it should mean anything, or whether or not the Steelers are actually interested in any wide receiver. Now, just to give some context in the background here, the Steelers love what they have in Calvin Austin, but that doesn't mean that they're going to stop doing anything in terms of trying to build a Super Bowl contender. And they've proven that all summer. Like, they have constantly said, oh, here we go. Calvin's the guy. Roman's the guy. We feel good about our wide receivers. And then called every team under the sun in search of a wideout. This time it's Tyreek Hill and Romeo Doubs. We'll start with Mike Florio, who had more to say here this time. Quote, I'll give you a little nugget that made the Steelers chatter a little more interesting to me. The same guy who told me that Jalen Ramsey was going to be a Steeler right when the first talk emerged of the Dolphins trading Jalen Ramsey told me that the Steelers want Tyreek. And I scoffed when this guy first told me that the Steelers want Jalen Ramsey. And that was back in April. So I'm going to take this a little more seriously. Look, I was all on I think I was one of the very few that when the Steelers were calling about Jalen Ramsey, I was sitting there going, they don't call for nothing. They don't make phone calls for no reason. That's not why they're in this business. Omar Khan doesn't just call every team saying, hey, let me check on your best player just to see if he's available. No, that's not what NFL teams do. If they call, there's a purpose behind that call. In terms of Jalen, I think we were stunned but not surprised. In terms of Tyreek, Adam Schefter says nobody is calling at all. He's got allegations going on right now. Mike McDaniels had to address those the other day, saying he's letting the NFL handle it. The Steelers, though, they quote unquote want him. On the other side of this one, Romeo Doubs from, and I apologize on this one, I don't have the source here, Easton something, said on Twitter, quote, several teams have called the Packers asking about the availability of Packers wide receiver Romeo Doubs. At least 2 of them have an offer on the table, I'm told. I'll start with the easy question here. Are the Pittsburgh Steelers one of those offers for Romeo Doubs? And you put it into context here. Aaron Rodgers has called every wide receiver he's ever played with in hopes of getting them to Pittsburgh, whether he loves Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson or not. He spent a very, very, very small time with Romeo Doubs, but he spent time with Romeo Doubs. Are the Pittsburgh Steelers one of the teams that have called about Romeo Doubs and maybe have an offer on the table for him in your eyes?
I believe so. I mean, I don't think it is a reaction to the week 1 performance of any of the wide receivers. I don't think that Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin watched the tape back from Calvin Austin III's performance and were like, yeah, that wasn't good, because that's just crazy. He had an excellent game. DK Metcalf did as well.
Yes.
I think this is just kind of meets the MO of the Steelers being sort of aggressive and sneaky, and the cunning style of Omar Khan, where, the Green Bay Packers did just extend Christian Watson. So he is,
yes,
I believe now 5 wide receivers not named Romeo Doubs are under contract through the 2026 season in Green Bay. There's not a lot to interpret there. He's not a part of their plans moving forward. I think everyone in the NFL sees that. There's a lot of injury trouble already, but the Steelers are probably like, can we buy low on this player who's kind of being ostracized from his team, doesn't fit into the long-term plans? I think Omar Khan is the perfect sort of GM who stays on top of those things and is well aware of the ongoings behind the scenes around the NFL. So it leads me to believe that the Steelers probably do have an offer in. And again, I don't think this was a reaction to the offense, especially the wide receivers not being enough or not doing enough for Aaron Rodgers. I think this is just another effort, another avenue that they are exploring to continue this all-in mentality that has kind of defined the Pittsburgh Steelers season, and we're already seeing be tested in one way or another. So yeah, I think they probably have an offer in. I think it's a low ball offer if I had to guess. But yeah, I think they're talking, and it would be kind of silly if they didn't at least kick some tires. Do you? What are you thinking? What are you hearing?
It's hard to think that the Steelers aren't a team that called an offer on the table. What's the offer on the table? What are you putting on the table for Romeo Doubs? What do you have for in the Packers for Romeo Doubs right here?
It's a very late round pick. It's like a 6th round pick, right? Like you're not going out there and showing all your cards, pushing all your chips to the center of the table, going all in on this player who is not really a huge part of the team you're trying to pry him away from. So I think they're just kind of being like, hey, 6th round pick is here. Sounds like you want to get this guy off your hands. We're happy to take him. You're willing to maybe bump it up to a 5, but anything beyond that, I think Omar Khan is just kind of maybe fishing for another deal, or pulling some strings one way or the other. It's got to be a late round pick in my mind.
I agree with that. I think that's really good analysis, because when you sit there and look at it, it's not that 2 offers on the table mean that neither of those offers are good enough to be accepted. So if the offer on the table is a 6th round pick, take it if nobody else wants it and Romeo wants out of Green Bay. I totally get that. And I think that that's most likely what the Steelers are looking at right now is a 5th, 6th round pick. The best part about this is I don't think you could get desperate. I think if the Pittsburgh Steelers are comfortable, they could sit here the whole time and just say, whatever, man, like we don't get them, cool, but we feel pretty confident about where things are at because Calvin Austin looked good. I said this in the call-in show yesterday. The Steelers don't need to rush into anything. They have 7 weeks to decide whether or not they need to go trade for a wide receiver. And they could use all 7 of those weeks because, yeah, guys are going to come off the table, but not all of them. You're not trading everybody before week 8 of the NFL season. If the Steelers go into week 2 and say, we want to give Calvin and everybody another shot, and if they look good again, we're going to wait till week 3. And if they look good again, we're going to wait until week 4. Great. If that's what you want to do and you want to slow ball this thing and let it cook and marinate and then make a decision when need be, I love that, and I think that's the way to go about it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'd go 6th round pick for Romeo Doubs. I'd bump it up to a 5th. Unless you feel different, I'd bump it up to a 5th for a Romeo Doubs and maybe some change on the back end. I don't think you'd need change on the back end, but I'd bump it up for a 5th and say, hey, you want to make this deal? Because he's going to start complaining. He's on the last year of his deal. The Steelers could use somebody. Next question when it comes to this, though, Tyreek comes, he's an instant guy. He's on the field, snap 1 with DK and Calvin Austin. That's just what's going on there. Romeo Doubs is different. What's the role for a Romeo Doubs if he shows up in Pittsburgh? Like, is he a guy that is the first one off the bench? Is he a Roman Wilson that gets 10 snaps? And obviously not, it's going to evolve. But what does it evolve into? Where does Romeo eventually find himself in the Steelers rotation if that's the case of what happens?
Well, I think he fits snugly into that 2/3 role on a good offense, like one potentially helmed by Aaron Rodgers, right? And I think that's exactly why he's a good fit and why he's more of an ideal candidate for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be pursuing, and is someone that we've talked about all summer long leading into the fall now. I think he is probably, in terms of talent, on par with Calvin Austin III, just strictly talking about talent. Obviously, yeah. Romeo Doubs has some production history and has a couple of 600-yard seasons, a couple of multi-touchdown seasons. He's solid. I think what I really like about this is it's really hard to define, at least for me, who would be the bona fide, legitimate, undisputed number 2 wide receiver between Calvin Austin and Romeo Doubs, which I think is kind of to the Steelers' advantage. I mean, I think that gives Calvin Austin more runway to continue, ascending if that is the path he's going to take this year. And if that doesn't happen, you have Romeo Doubs, a guy who is used to being targeted somewhere between, 40 to 70 times in the season since 2022 or 2023. That gives you a lot of depth that now all of a sudden we're talking again about how Aaron Rodgers is able to spread the ball out again to all of these weapons rather than how is he going to force the ball to DK Metcalf and as well as someone like a Tyreek Hill who demands volume of targets. Now we have just options on the field and we have more ability to spread the ball around. So that kind of fits for me. It's not the absolute number 2. You're on the field no matter what, opposite of DK Metcalf, but I think that benefits the Steelers overall.
Okay. Does it hurt Calvin? If Romeo becomes the number, does it hurt Calvin's? Again, is the same thing with Tyreek. We talked about this the other day. If Tyreek shows up, are you and he becomes it's kind of a slap in the face to a guy that just presented himself as a stud in week 1 against the Jets, it would be the same thing. This is where I would say Calvin's the number 2. Romeo at best becomes the number 3 is because yes, he's the guy that's behind DK, but he would have to have a Calvin type game while Calvin does not have those Calvin type games moving forward. And I think this is just the beginning. I have no factual evidence of this, but this is just the beginning of what Calvin can do because Calvin should have done this in years past. I think that's the biggest part that we forget when it comes to Calvin in this one breakout game is dude, if you go back and watch the tape, Calvin's open all last season, constantly open and never gets the football because Russ is not a great quarterback anymore. Aaron's a guy that's going to find the open receiver, and Calvin is open all the time. Like, it's not Calvin was open twice in that game. No, Calvin's open constantly, and he was open constantly last season. And I just think that, yeah, there's one game on tape to say this finally happened, but at the same time, I think that there's a lot more coming. Whereas Romeo's a physical guy. I like Romeo Doubs, but you show up in week 4, it takes a lot to become more than just a rental option, where Calvin's right now probably a long-term option, where it's different with Tyreek, where you'd have to extend because he's making $52 million next season, which is crazy. but you'd have to look at him as a guy who's here for longer than a year. Let me ask this one, and shout out to Michelle, who asked this in the chat, or said this in the chat. We need to keep Calvin Austin, but I'm good with Wilson being traded. Would you trade Roman for either of these guys? Would you say, hey, Roman Wilson's on the table, you could have him for Tyreek or Romeo Doubs?
Yeah, I agree with Michelle 100% here. I have ridden this train regarding Roman Wilson. It had its peaks and valleys for sure over the past year and a half, but Mike Tomlin said it himself after week 1. Like, I'm not really interested in granting snaps to someone in terms of player development. I think the terms he used was, this isn't little league football, meaning you're either moving on the train with them or you're just going to get left behind. And I think Roman Wilson, one reason or another, we can't necessarily pinpoint the exact reason why, but he continues to be left off the train. And so if you have a player you're not going to use, but has talent, might generate interest around the league, and you could use him to acquire someone more fitting, more able to address the immediate needs of the team. Yeah, I think it's a tough situation for Roman Wilson that he's found himself in for the second year in a row, but yeah, if you could pull it off for a trade like for Tyreek Hill or Romeo Doubs, I'm great with it.
Yeah, I agree. You want him, take him. Have fun. The only thing that would pull me back on Romeo is that Romeo has 1 year left on his deal. Roman has 3. And I don't at that point, you're taking a risk on a guy to say he's going to stick around. We're going to be able to sign him to another deal. Now you could have those conversations before the trade. You could say, Romeo, here's a sign and trade. We sent Roman Wilson to Green Bay, which they would be wild to trade a wide receiver for another wide receiver, to say, yep, that solved the problem that we lacked. We definitely didn't have enough of these guys. That was fine. But you could say, hey, here's Roman for Romeo, but Romeo, here's a 3-year deal, 2-year deal worth nothing, close to nothing over the next couple of seasons. And then it brings up questions, obviously, for Calvin and his next contract. But Calvin keeps playing like this, dude. Calvin's getting another deal. There's nobody, the Steelers are not going to let him walk out of the building in February and say, we'll talk to you in April. No chance. He'd have a deal instantly to say, that's our guy. He's not going anywhere. Here, 3 years, super cheap. There it is. All good. For Romeo, it'd have to come with a contract. I think that contract be fine. He's going to be super cheap as well. And I honestly think that works out really well for the Steelers to have 3 guys that solidify your wide receiver room long-term, because right now Roman does not do that, to be able to say, here's 3 dudes under contract for the next 3 to 5 years. 2 of them cost almost no money. Sounds good. And they're established NFL vets, which is what the Steelers have been lacking. And I do think that works out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm kind of in on the Romeo Doubs thing. I'm not in on Tyreek Hill. I think Tyreek Hill comes with so much baggage and drama and nonsense that it's not worth it. Romeo Doubs, I could get in on some Romeo Doubs for sure. For sure.
Very, very much so. I have one closing thought on Tyreek Hill, and it's, yes, all the outside stuff aside, we talked about that a bunch over the last couple of days as well.
Yeah.
I saw a stat, and I didn't write it down, so forgive me, but I believe he only has 1 catch of longer than 30 yards since
week 1 of last year.
Yeah, or
No, I
yeah,
think
we
it's
won. Yes, thank you for
week
week
one
1
of
of
last
last
year.
year.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's not, Tua's injuries were a big part of it. Mike McDaniel's time in Miami is certainly
Yes.
souring and coming to an end. The system doesn't really work when Tua has like 3% brain power left. Like, it's just not a great situation. Lots of factors, but the fact remains that Tyreek Hill is a $50 million receiver who can't
Yes.
break chunk plays anymore. So I'd rather give up a 6th-round pick for a guy who's a 2-3 than
Yes.
do the same thing for a guy who comes with a boatload of off the field issues, as well as not the ability to be the game breaking number 2 you're requiring him to be.
Yes.
So that's
Especially a
my
guy
final thoughts on
who
that.
yes, as a guy who comes with an NFL career that is based around 30-yard plays. What's Tyreek Hill
Exactly.
good at? Not physical catches. I mean, and he is, but that's not why you trade for a Tyreek Hill, and it's not why the Steelers would either. I love that stat. It was great to bring up. With that said, let's start answering questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We'll start answering them right after this break.
Pittsburgh, this one's for you. From the voices behind all Steelers talk comes Black and Gold apparel, your go-to for bold, fan-driven merch that reps the city, the Steelers, and everything in between. Whether you bleed black and gold or just love that Pittsburgh grit, we've got something for you. It's more than a podcast. It's a community. And thanks to your support, we're proud to bring the passion from our mics to your closets. Gear up, stand out, and show the world what real fans look like. Shop now at blackandgoldapparel.myshopify.com.
All righty. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. If you got questions, toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. I want to start with good old ND Joe. I understand the interest in calling around for another wide receiver if the Steelers are willing to, quote, wait and see with Turnstile Jones. Why can't they do this for a better name than Hill? He's Deontay 2.0. I mean, look at ND Joe. Let's start with the end of this question and the fact that you just disgraced Deontay's name by comparing him to Tyreek Hill. Deontay is a lot. George Pickens 2.0 is a better representation of what we're going for here. Deontay at his worst in Pittsburgh. Now, you don't go on the field because you're chilly. That's a different situation. But yeah, I don't know if he was ever, I don't know if in Pittsburgh, if he was ever that guy. George was a Tyreek times 7. So just about the same wide receiver. I think the Steelers probably are calling other teams for wide receivers. And honestly, that conversation's probably continue to happen. This being said, like I keep saying and will keep saying, they have 7 weeks to make a decision. And I expect those 7 weeks to be pretty much the whole 7 weeks. They're not going to rush any of this. They're going to say, look, if we need somebody, awesome. But if week 2 and week 3, Roman Wilson has 65 yards and a touchdown, why do we need another wide receiver? Everything's totally fine. So I don't think it's a rush situation. I do think that they're keeping tabs on it. I don't think it's to replace Calvin Austin. I simply think it's to say Ben Skoranic's a stud. Don't get me wrong, but you probably need somebody else as well to catch some footballs. So I do imagine, unless you feel different, that the Pittsburgh Steelers are making other phone calls. I don't think Tyreek, and you also have to check sources here. Okay, let's start with that one too, or let's finish with that one too. See where it comes from. In this case, it's Mike Florio, so take that as you will, and then decide on what's going on and if the Steelers actually have some interest. So I think the Steelers probably are calling other teams, but again, I think they're very, very slow in the process because they want to see how this works out on their end while keeping in communication and seeing what is available in the meantime. That's kind of how I view the situation.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most rational take on the situation. I just don't, like my personal opinion remains the same. Like, I don't understand the priority number 1 being adding another wide receiver. Like, honestly, like what Calvin Austin did against the Jets was like, I'm like, that's what you needed out of a wide receiver too. Why would you? The search is done in my mind, but I understand like the monitoring. Like, again, they set up this pattern of we're all in to win a Super Bowl, so if we got to add another piece, we're a team that'll sign Jabril Peppers just because like we need him for about 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Like, that is like the mentality and the methodology that they've employed this year. So I'm all for continuing to improve, but I just don't understand. Like, you have this issue at left tackle that seems to be the most painfully obvious and weakest part of the offense, and has not felt like there's any tangible steps being taken there. But I feel very certain that they're calling around, checking in on different wide receivers. So, just that part doesn't make sense to me.
No, me neither. Do you think that they are calling? Like, again, I can't sit here and name guys off the top of my head, but do you think that they are calling for left tackles? Do you think that that's a possibility?
Sure. I mean, again, for the same reason, I think that like Omar Khan is calling people regarding wide receivers. I think he is keeping tabs on left tackles. And, it was Doug Whaley on 93.7 talked about the Broderick situation, and he said like something along the lines of, the players in the locker room know what's going on, obviously. So like it's not as if the coaching staff, the executive team are oblivious, are turning a blind eye to what happens on the football field. They're more in tune to it than we are. So like I don't know how you watch the week 1 performance and don't come away with it with some sort of worry, which would probably prompt action. There's just nothing out there. Like we talked about so many times, who do you go out and you can't sign anybody. There's no one worth trading for. And if you were to go get some lockdown left tackle, you're talking about giving up multiple high-end draft picks to make it happen. It's just like not a situation that the Steelers can find a solution to.
I agree. I don't know if they're out there, but I would be stunned if they're not. I think Omar Khan calls about every position outside of kicker on almost a yearly basis. So left tackle's got to be on there as well. Smootest Buddhist, Tyreek Hill, we're good. Calvin Austin III is here. Okay, you just talked about it. Wide receiver 2 search is done. Is Calvin Austin enough for you to say the Steelers can afford to go through a season with what they have? Because injuries happen. DK goes down. Is it enough? Is Calvin Austin good enough to say we're good? The Steelers are going to be just fine in a 4-game span if DK goes down. And I'm only talking small stints here because, you know what I mean? Nobody, their superstar wide receiver or their superstar linebacker or their superstar quarterback and wins a Super Bowl. Your odds of winning the Super Bowl go significantly down. But if DK gets hurt for a 4-game stretch and the Steelers got to win 3 of those games to win the AFC North or something, are you comfortable in that situation to say Calvin Austin could hold the fort down? He's good enough?
No, not just by the presence of Calvin Austin, but what gives me a little bit of hope in this situation is that Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith do seem to be early on week 1 overreaction, seem to be trusted targets for Aaron Rodgers. So I think in a hypothetical short span where they don't have their superstar wide receiver out there on the field, I think it's not crazy. I think it could happen where the tight ends continue to get a lot of targets, a lot of receptions, and that can sort of make up the pass volume difference with DK Metcalf not being on the field. Am I encouraged about them going 3-1? Would I bet on them going 3-1 in that 4-game stretch hypothetically? But no, you don't have a ton of confidence. And I think that's what leads me on a road right back to that's why like a guy like Romeo Doubs makes sense. Because again, you're not talking about like this, is he a number 1? Are you going to keep him happy if he only has 2 catches a game? Like, you don't have that concern with Romeo Doubs. But if DK Metcalf is not on the field for 4 weeks, I feel fine about Romeo Doubs, Calvin Austin, Freiermuth, and Jonnu Smith being the 4 main targets for Aaron Rodgers over those 4 games. So, it's tough. Calvin Austin himself, no, but he deserves the runway to keep proving that he might be, in my opinion. You don't have a game like you do in week 1 and then just not earn another opportunity based off of that.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. And Pittsburgh Hornets here, I say that we should use Mute as a wide receiver too, but I do have him in my fantasy lineup. Yep. Let me relay that to Mike Tomlin. Just push the narrative a little bit. That's where I sit on this is you have the tight ends to say, you have the offensive coordinator to say, I can build a game plan where Jonnu and Pat catch 11 balls a game in a span where DK is not there, and things will be not explosive, but we could keep the ball moving. And if you keep the ball moving, you could win football games. That's what we saw in week 1 was the Steelers were able to continue to move the football. Third down conversion. You're going, holy smokes, dude. It's been 45 years. My grandfather hasn't watched a first down in since he was 16. Like, it's crazy. And I think that you have those guys to say, as long as Calvin could continue to get open, which becomes much more significant or much more difficult when DK's out, if DK's out, then if he could pull it off, you have the tight ends to catch over the middle and keep the ball moving, which I do think helps in a lot of these situations. Is it perfect? No, but like you said, in a short game span, like, it gives you a shot. Would you bet on the shot? I don't know, but it gives you a shot to kind of make it work. It gives you a shot to kind of pull something out. I got a bit of a crazy one here for you, John. Could they pull off some kind of 3-way trade? Roman Wilson to a needy wide receiver team that is a player Green Bay may need to get Dobbs. Just curious to see if it would happen. I don't think there's ever been a 3-way trade in the NFL. I don't have my hypothetical glasses on right now to come up with something crazy. But I'm going to be honest. I think the answer to this is a strong no. Would be awesome. I'd pull it off in Madden for sure. And it would be sick. It would be so sick. I don't know what they need a defensive tackle. So I guess that's the need. I guess you could toss that out there. Would you trade Would you consider Keanu Benton trade for Romeo Dobbs and a draft pick? You're definitely getting more than just Dobbs if you're trading Keanu Benton, but they just got rid of Kenny Clark. Would you consider a hey and then boom, Why Black's your guy in the middle there?
Man, I love KB. I can't give up on him unless, like you said, unless you'd have to get a lot of assets back or a significant package in return. I think Keanu Benton, I'm not overreacting on him after week 1, even though I've probably overreacted a good bit over the last week. But I don't know. I think he's gonna be fine. If I had to, guess, or if I was gonna make my bet, I would not move him. I would, if you can facilitate a 3-team trade in the NFL, that's excellent. I know, the NHL got so good at it that they made them stop doing it for this upcoming year. They're like, you gotta be better at this. You can't retain so many contracts and help other teams out. I don't think this is going to be the case for the NFL. I just don't think there's so much money and weird cap finagling that happens. I just think if the Steelers took Romeo Dobbs and another team took Keanu Benton, and then there's someone else getting a veteran who's owed a certain amount of money next year, it would just be so wild and so convoluted and confusing. I think over the cap, the website might explode.
I really do. And I know that guy, he's a good guy. I think Spotrac would have a bit of a meltdown, which would be so wild to watch happen. Cody Silva, Ramsey is my favorite player. Do we miss Minka? No. He brings a nastiness we didn't have before he got in Wilson's head, took Wilson and Hall on 2-on-1, trolled the O-line dancing after a penalty, and dropped Wilson to miss the game. These are all true facts. Jalen Ramsey is a difference maker, which is awesome. You know what I mean? I think that's what the Steelers have been missing, is what Jalen Ramsey is a guy that is what they wanted Minka to be for a long time. They wanted Minka to drop into center field and then when need be on crucial situations, come up and be the guy in the slot to hit Garrett Wilson as hard as humanly possible, to rush off the edge when need be, to play outside when Joey Porter Jr. goes down so that you don't have to put in James Pierre. That's what they wanted Minka to be for 3 or 4 years. Didn't happen, and I'm not discrediting Minka. I think Minka, and I have no idea how he looked in Miami's first game. I'm going to guess not good because nobody looked good in Miami. When you lose by 30 to Daniel Jones, hard to say somebody looked fine.
Comeback
But
player of the year, Daniel Jones. You watch your tongue.
he's gonna win it, but still, like that doesn't. It does not justify the Danny Dimes. Okay, it does not. Joey Flacco. Okay, won comeback player of the year. Let's not all breathe on the city. Let's not get a little overhyped here. It is. He's the best. He's exactly what the Steelers have needed for a long time. I think it's a perfect fit for the Steelers defense. You know, he also drives one crazy giant truck, which is just very Pittsburgh fitting. And I question every day how everybody fits in that parking lot. But, you know, it's there. It's there. Shout out to Jalen Ramsey, man. Shout out to Cody Silva. Too many hurt at practice. Bold take. DK's first tutty this week. Scotty Miller's second touchdown of the game. Could you imagine going Ben Skoranek, Scotty Miller receiving touchdowns in week 1 and week 2? I think Arthur Smith immediately wins assistant coach of the season of the year. I think you just hand it to him. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP at that point. No questions asked. My bold take yesterday and yours this morning actually was DK has 2 touchdowns in this game, which means Aaron Rodgers goes back. Is there give me your odds on Aaron Rodgers 4 tutties in 2 back-to-back games to start his Pittsburgh Steelers career. Also, one note here. Scotty Miller would be the guy that ties Brett Favre's all-time touchdown record for Aaron Rodgers, which would be iconic for Scotty Miller to be that guy. Would be so awesome. All right, hit me with those odds.
I think the odds have to be pretty good. I think they have to be pretty good. Let me pull out my bookie cap real quick, calculating. They'd be pretty strong. They'd be like plus 700. Do you take that bet?
I'd take that bet easy. Plus 700. I mean, that's like first. I bet that on like Derrick Henry multiple touchdowns pretty much every single game. So that's, you know, plus 700 odds. If you anything under 1,000, I'm feeling there's a chance. Yeah, like you're sitting there going, what's $5? You know what I mean? Like I just won't get a coffee on Monday. It's no big deal. We're fine. And then I still get a coffee. And at the end of the month, my wife goes, dude, you're real off budget. And I go, well, brother, if DK caught that 4th touchdown from Aaron Rodgers, you know what I mean? We'd be real on budget. Okay. We'd be pretty spot on here. I blame him. I like the odds. Let's keep it trucking here. Michelle, what is going on with Jacoby Myers? I actually have some info on this one. So Jacoby is still looking for a trade from the Las Vegas Raiders. He is not comfortable with the situation. He wants out and he thinks that he's going to get out. And that's a persistent thing. And that's coming right from Vegas. It's not coming from Jacoby. It's coming from Vegas. They think that he believes that he wants out and that he's not going to stop until he is out. He's not making a big fuss of it right now, but that's going to change as the deadline gets closer. This is in Vegas's eyes. This is another Devontae Adams situation where it's like start slow. Again, not a dramatic guy, so he's not going to make it dramatic. It's going to become dramatic at some point. Jacoby's still on the table. I don't know your thoughts on that one.
I mean, he talked about another ideal fit. If you can land him and sign him to a reasonable extension, you know, somewhere in the $20 to $25 million per year, you've netted a very, very strong. We're talking about someone levels above someone like a Romeo Dobbs in terms of immediate impact. You'd have him for another year as well. Stabilizes the quarterback situation as well. If there is a rookie in 2026 in the picture or a Will Howard, you know, fill in the blank there.
Yes.
My question is, you know, Geno Smith looked okay. You know,
he did look pretty high.
Does that impact anything here? I know Jacoby wants out, but is there, like, if they win, if they're a surprise team in the AFC West, you know, I guess I'm not holding out hope because of it. Should I continue to hold hope or get back into that feeling despite them looking good in week 1?
No, you should still hold on to hope because at the end of the day, the NFL is a business. And you want to know what the Raiders and the Steelers will have in common is that they will both most likely have won a couple of games by week 8. You want to know what they will have different is that the Pittsburgh Steelers might be willing to pay Jacoby Myers what their Las Vegas Raiders will not. And when that's on the table, he might look at Geno Smith and say, sorry, pal, Aaron Rodgers, man, just edges you out a little bit. We're feeling pretty okay about this one. On top of the fact that you don't have to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year, probably helps the situation just like a little tiny bit. And you don't have to play Pat Surtain twice a year. Also probably helps the situation a little bit. Yeah. I feel like as long as the Steelers don't suck, anybody in the NFL would probably feel, yeah, you know what? Like, I feel good about this team, but at the end of the day, do I think Geno Smith's a Super Bowl winning quarterback? Yeah. Yeah. He might not say it out loud, but he'll say it to every family member he knows, when he's talking about trying to get out of good old Las Vegas and then pay some taxes in PA, which would stink. John, do you think Dobbs will start to push more to be traded once Watkins returns and guys like Savion start to come back into their own? Yes, I think that this is going to be a revolving door of like it's like last year where it's like Romeo wants out. Like this is going to be the same thing once again. The difference is this is the last year Green Bay can trade him. What's your odds? What's your 1 to 10 thought on Romeo getting out of here? Not even ending up in Pittsburgh, but leaving Green Bay by the trade deadline.
I really don't. I don't think Green Bay is going to be eager to trade anybody. I think they love this idea of having a very large group of receivers for Jordan Love to throw to when he's healthy. I'm going to say a 2 out of 10 that he gets traded at all.
Oh, low.
And
real low.
I'm going against the grain here. I know it makes a ton of sense for him to get traded. It makes so much sense for Green Bay to sort of move on from him now to recoup any sort of asset in return. But the NFL is a very fickle thing. Injuries could occur. And again, the Packers fancy themselves Super Bowl contenders, especially after acquiring Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
Teams like that tend to hang on to players that have talent, regardless of if they fit directly into the needs of the team at the moment.
That is true. That is very, very true. It kind of depends on how things shape out. Man, dude, Dobbs is going to be, I will say that in the question of this, will he continue to push in that situation? Dobbs is going to be pissed when he's got 40 catches at the end of the season, but is a guy who probably could have had 70 and finds out real fast that the Packers still don't win a Super Bowl. That would suck. That would definitely suck. Too many hard at practice. Who gets the first tutty this year, Caleb or Roman Wilson? My bet is on Caleb Johnson. It's Caleb Johnson. I like Roman, and anybody could catch a touchdown in Pittsburgh this season. That is the rule of thumb. But at some point, they're going to be on the one, and they're just going to put Caleb in there and say, run forward and put your head down and, try to find your way into the end zone. And I think he's going to do it. So my bet's on Caleb Johnson. What week does Caleb Johnson score his first touchdown?
After the bye week. For sure.
After the bye. Okay, so week 6. That's not actually super late. Okay.
It's not crazy. Yeah. Like
no.
maybe week 6. I could see like a division. I think they had the Bengals in week 6 or 7.
They go Bengals. Bengals, Cleveland.
Let's say them. Let's say them.
Okay.
I'm willing to go so far out on a limb that Roman Wilson just won't be a part of this offense anymore. I think it's more likely that Caleb Johnson scores a touchdown on a kick return than Roman Wilson catches a passing touchdown this season.
Wow. Even with everything happening, even with the Ben Skoranek catching touchdowns? Yeah. Okay.
Because Ben Skoranek caught the touchdown, because Scotty Miller feels like he's a more viable threat than Roman Wilson. Like, if Ben Skoranek's on the bus, if he's on the train, but Roman Wilson can't catch up, what is happening? Like, he's not going to be a part of this team. Like, something has to happen. Like, so
I don't disagree.
So also, I'm very, since I feel very strongly about this, would encourage most people to bet the opposite, because I'll probably be very wrong.
And for those who want to, Caleb is a plus 1,100 touchdown scorer this week. Wilson is plus 1,000. In the new kickoff rules, I think anything is possible. I think they look at it like Roman's still going to get more snaps than Caleb does in week 2. Like it's not going to be, just like you said, after the bye week it's going to be a slow ramp for Caleb. He's going to go from 2 snaps for -2 yards to 5 snaps for 6 yards to 12 snaps to, you know what I mean? It's a slow roll. They love Kenny G, man. That was Arthur Smith's favorite thing to say today at the press conferences.
Crazy.
Love Kenny G. Love Kenny G. Yeah, cool. And don't get me wrong, Caleb hasn't looked good, but again, you put him at the 1 yard line and they send Kenneth Gainwell out there to bulldoze his way into the end zone. I think everybody should write a sternly worded letter to Arthur Smith and say, hey, pal, I don't know what you're doing, but Kenneth Gainwell weighs 32 pounds soaking wet, and Caleb Johnson went to Iowa. Put him in the game. I agree with you. Cody Silva, if Broderick Jones doesn't work out, how many years does it put the Steelers back at bare minimum 2? I don't think it's at bare minimum 2. I think if Broderick doesn't work out this season, it's 1 and it's this year, but I think that you could draft a left tackle in the first or second round next year. And I think left tackle immediately becomes your top priority in 2026 outside of quarterback. I just first round picks, quarterback, second round pick or second first round pick, however you could pull it off, is a left tackle. If you don't go and get one in free agency to say, I'm done playing around with this, we're going to get an Isaac Seumalo of the left tackle position. I don't think it's 2 years though. I think it puts you back this year I just don't think you could overcome not having a good left tackle. Like, I don't think you're a Super Bowl contender without a good left tackle. But I don't think that it sets them back forever. I do think that left tackle is an easy one to replace somehow, difficult to hit on, easy to have options with, I think.
Yeah, that's a great, I'll agree with that last point. It's definitely, I'd say it's a hard thing to hit on. Obviously, Steelers are finding that out right now. But I would feel confident about them going into the draft in 2026, looking for a left tackle to take that spot. And I think that would be fine. I don't think we're talking about, they can't win a Super Bowl in 2026 because whoever they draft to replace Broderick Jones isn't quite ready. They'll figure out something.
Yes, I agree. And whether it's somewhere, somehow, according to Dylan, it's the goodwill, which I hope Broderick doesn't see this, but we'll see. To keep it trucking here on Broderick, Pittsburgh Hornets, do you get the sense that Broderick will take steps forward? I hope so, man. I like Broderick. That's the biggest thing with me is I like Broderick so much. He's such a positive individual. He's always super nice to everybody. He works his butt off. I like Broderick. He's a guy that you want to root for. He's just not a guy that's successful after you root for him, and that's the toughest part. But I don't know. Do you think that Broderick takes a step forward this season? Do you think that you get him at any point to look good for a consistent amount of time?
No. And it makes, again, I am in the same boat as Noah. Every time I have interacted with Broderick Jones, or anytime he's just watching him on the field, you can tell that he is just a very well-respected, well-loved teammate.
Yes.
He's got this incredible attitude. He's like someone that, you'd want to be friends with. He's so easy to root for.
Yes.
I want him to be good for all of those reasons. It's just, there's nothing about his performance that has shown me that I can be confident in him or that he's going to take those next steps forwards. He just needed the game to warm up and sort of ramp up into game action. No, as we've talked about throughout this entire week, and as I'm sure so many people have talked about as well, it was, hand placement, feet, it was balance, it was technique issues outside of that. It was just lack of awareness in certain situations. It's not one issue gets corrected, he takes a step forward. It's we're talking about him going from extremely green, raw, and unpolished to starter capable in a week. I don't know how that happens, or even in a couple of weeks. I just don't think that happens.
No, I agree. It stinks because, again, I want to root for him, but the odds are stacked against him. Cody Silva here. Bengals got 7 yards of offense in the second half of the game. 7 yards of offense in 30 minutes of football. Bengals 3.5 favorites at home versus the Jaguars. Who you taking? Okay, he's taking the Jags. Cody Silva's taking the Jags. I will say this. Let's start by saying this. I was 0-4 in week 1. Not a great start to the season at all. Really bad start to the year. We're going to find out if I'm 0-5 to start the year tonight. I don't even know who's playing, but I will most likely be on the wrong side of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go Jags, but I'd take the money, or I'd take the 3.5. I'd go 3.5 because that means that, like, as long as they win, cool. But if they lose by a field goal, you still win. You know what I mean? And I don't think Cincinnati puts up 60. I think their offensive line is so bad. That being said, I have Jamar Chase on my fantasy team, and I need him to play well. So I would not hope for that. I would have a hard time sitting here going, I hope the Bengals don't score 70 points. Yeah, I don't feel good about it, to be honest, brother. I feel I would take the 3.5. I don't know what the over under is. I think I'd take the under on it and feel better about that situation. You're not a gambler, but I do want to know what it is. It's Commanders Packers tonight, which I'm going Pack all day. And it's not. I'm going Pack all day. Got to do it, my friend.
I actually did do the Pick'ems League this week. So
thank you. Thank you. Shout out.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. I'm taking the Commanders tonight. It's going to be wild. Very excited for the game. Thanks. I would not take the Jags.
Appreciate it.
I would not take the Jaguars, Cody. I would fear the pendulum swinging too far the other way, and this being the game where they get 700 yards in a half. So if it was the Bengals versus a lot of other teams, I would be inclined to bet against them. Not a big fans of what they are right now, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are not one of those teams that I ever really feel confident in, and maybe I'm just wrong and on the wrong page right now, but I'd take the Bengals for this week to be safe. Cody, please let me know. Again, I love knowing if I'm right or wrong. So if I am wrong, please let me know. I'll be excited to hear about
it. Shout out to Azaria here with 2 of them. Appreciate you, man. Can't tell you how much we do. We need to play hard-nosed defense and run the ball. The passing game is cherry on top. I think the hard-nosed defense for sure. Running the football, Bill Cowher would be proud. I don't know if you can run the football with this backfield. They haven't shown it all summer. That being said, I got to stick with my Jaylen Warren's good niche here because I have not left it, nor will I leave it because I love Jaylen. Good teammate, works his butt off in the mountains of Utah, which is awesome. And I'm all for it, man. I'm all for it. Shout out Azaria. Appreciate you as always. We got a couple more to finish this one off. John, is there really a lot of trade talk going on this early in the season? Seems like teams would want to wait when it comes to trading a player, especially a left tackle, when one injury can change everything. Yes, which would, in my eyes, raise the price. If you're going to go get a left tackle, even if it's a backup, maybe a 6th round pick becomes a 4th because you're going to have to juice up that price tag to get them to honestly just agree to the move, just agree to the trade. So I think it's tough right now to make a trade for everybody. That being said, the Steelers could be calling. Doesn't mean they're getting anywhere. Doesn't mean they're getting deep into these conversations, and I don't expect them to be. I look at it and say the Steelers right now are a team that they're hoping for the best, but they're also saying, you want to know what would be the easiest way out of this? Broderick Jones to not stink. So let's hope that Broderick Jones doesn't stink. I do think they're calling, but I also think that they're most likely not getting anywhere where we stand right now, unless
No, I think you're bang on. I think there's lots of trade calls happening, lots of trade inquiries happening. There are no significant talks happening, especially regarding like a wide receiver or a left tackle right now. I think there's lots of conversations happening. They happen throughout the year, early on, late in the year, whatever, but I don't think there's anything serious on the burner right now. But I think, a couple weeks, maybe in a week or two, it's going to get more and more serious.
Yes, I agree. Smoot is with a good one here. Got to be honest, the run game wasn't completely on the offensive line. Warren and Kenny G missed some cutback lanes. Very much so agreed. Kenny G has one that sticks in my mind that if you go back and watch the tape, he's running to the right. There is a cutback lane the size of my gut after a box of donuts. Massive. You know what I mean? Like it looks like Y.A. Black's belly out there. And he missed it completely, got like 2 yards on it. That happens. That happens from time to time. I don't put the running game on the offensive line or the running backs. I think it's a combination of both. I don't say this is the issue. Like, I don't think it's just Broderick Jones. I don't think it's just Mason McCormick or Isaac Siamalu or whoever. And I don't think it's just Jalen and Kenny G. I look at it as a collective not working well right now. That being said, I think the talent's there. It's just gotta mesh. And then you need Caleb Johnson because I think he's the different running back. I don't think Caleb's got the talent right now to be out there and make a difference, but once he is able to, you gotta hope that he's gonna. But yeah, I don't think it's, unless you feel different. I think it's a collective more than it's one or the other.
I mean, yeah, there's nothing that can be said that puts everything on one side of this equation. Like it was not the case where if Kenneth Gainwell just had hit the hole like he was supposed to, the running game works. Like it's not the case that if only they avoided running to the left side of the line because that was the weaker performing side, it would all be fixed. Like there were breakdowns in so many different ways. There were moments when the right side of the line looked like nothing. There was times when Jalen Warren could not see where to go. There were times when Broderick Jones didn't look strong in run blocking. There were times when Kenneth Gainwell, as we've already said, was missing, some open lanes. It looked very clunky. It looked very awkward. It looked very just like a disorganized sort of group. And that, to me, when all of those things are happening, that tells me it's not just on one player, one specific position. It's, the amalgamation, the combination of everybody together, just kind of doing their own thing and not working cohesively that yields this result. So if it happens again against the Seattle Seahawks, which is another great challenge, honestly, for this running game, I think we're talking about how, in my opinion, the running backs just don't have enough to counteract what the offensive line can do or can't do. But I'm not going to say that outright right now.
I agree. I think that's a great way to put it, is you got to see what they do, but I'm not ready to put it on the lack of in the running back or in the running back room. But I think that I think if you put Saquon Barkley back there, the running game looks fine. You know what I mean? And I think that makes a bit of a difference. Quick one here. Is Malik Harrison out for the season? I don't believe so. I believe it's an MCL sprain from what I've been told. It should be about 5 to 6 weeks, and then he'll make his way back onto the field, which means that Cole Holcomb might play a little bit this weekend because you know what they say, Cole Holcomb, baby. That's what they say. Azaria, shout out once again, and we'll finish it off with your comment here. With all these tight ends, we need to see the tight end package. What? What did I miss here?
It seems very an entendre that might be doubled if you had to ask me. But
with all these, I don't know what we're talking about. What do you mean?
Read it 3 more times out loud.
With all these tight ends. Oh, all right. I got it.
Gotta mix it up.
Steelers gotta use the tight ends. I agree. I think that Pat Freiermuth is. I think, were you a little underwhelmed at Pat Freiermuth's play or the amount he was used in week 1?
The second part. I was very underwhelmed with the usage. I found his play to be same old Freiermuth, where it's like he is a pretty precise route runner. He often was open. I think, again, so the thing that was disappointing specifically about him was, it didn't seem like the running game worked when it was going to his side. And I think that was not just solely on him, like we were talking about a minute ago, but it wasn't the best performance. But I just think it was not anything that I felt worried about.
I agree. think it'll all cut. I think there will be games where Jonnu catches 6 passes, games where Pat catches 6 passes, games where Penn Skoranek catches 11 passes for 14 touchdowns. I think it's all coming. I just think it's gonna mix itself up. And then Tyrone, they just said that they don't know who will start, Jabril Peppers or Chuck Clark. It's going to be Chuck Clark. Chuck Clark's going to start. Peppers probably will play a little bit here and there, but he's got to learn the defense. And then from there, I think it'll grow. But I expect way more from Jabril Peppers in time, not right now. All right. With that said, guys, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, we'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.